This week, as you can see, our subject is custom shortcuts, why they're your new best friend. So let me hop over to Pipeline. Hopefully you're as excited about these shortcuts as we are for you about them. They are pretty handy. Okay, first let's talk about what they are. The custom shortcuts allow you to, let's head over to our transactions page so you can see them, allow you to run your own custom searches and or sorts, which you would execute all right around here. We'll talk about get into detail in a moment, and then save them for easy access later, right? Over here in your My Shortcuts section. The benefit of that, what's so special, is that essentially you can run these shortcuts no matter what, right? Whether you switch browsers, whether you're on a different device, so they're completely browser and device independent. So if you're in the field and on your mobile device, you'll have these here. If you're on your laptop and in the office, if you switch browsers from Firefox to Chrome to Safari, etc., they'll always be right here handy next to your transactions list. Okay, this is kind of a nice segue into where they're accessible. Currently, you can see these shortcuts on your transactions list page here. Very soon, though, you'll also be able to execute and see them on your tasks page as well as on your unreviewed page. So you can run some custom shortcuts for those pages specifically. Okay. Also coming soon is that these shortcuts that you see right now on your transactions page, they will be on your dashboard, which is a little bit of a spoiler. You'll be getting a new dashboard soon. And that, again, that shortcuts menu will be over here, easily accessible. Okay, as soon as you log in, basically. So if there's a search or sort that you run regularly, you won't have to go to the transactions page first to see it. You'll see those shortcuts right there. All right, so let's dive into just the general use of these custom shortcuts. The main thing the first thing I want to point out here is that because you've now got the ability to use predefined dates, let's say I were to search on close date, I can specify one of these predefined dates like last week, last month, this month, etc., instead of actual, we'll call them just hard dates, right? When you save your shortcuts, they'll be relative to when you run the report, right? So if I execute a report for next month right now is June, but if I run this report in November, say, it'll run it for December, right? So it's always relative to when you're running the report. So that's a huge bonus here, instead of having to actually name the actual dates, right? The absolute dates. Okay, so huge benefit there, and that'll serve us as we're going through and creating these reports. Also, just a heads up, in our next release, you'll have the ability, in addition to these dates that are currently listed here, you'll be able to search and sort on received email date, so you can see when new messages have come into transactions. Just a heads up there. Okay, so like I mentioned, you can save your custom searches and sorts. So if I were to run a search, let's say based on all of my transactions that are in the listed status, it'll show me those, and then I can add that as a shortcut. You see that little add shortcut highlighted up here and appeared once I ran my search, and then I can save that as a shortcut, okay? That's how I get these over to this left-hand side. If I didn't have any shortcuts, if you've logged in and don't have any shortcuts over here, there will be no shortcuts listed, and you'll see instructions on how to do what I just said, which is to run a search and then add a shortcut in order to add new shortcuts there, okay? So that's the basics of how to actually save them. We're gonna do several practical examples, but I'm just wanted to mention that's the main way of how to do that. But I also wanted to mention, right now I just searched and then added a shortcut. A lot of times you may have a need just to have your lists sorted in a particular way, right? So let me refresh this page by going back to transactions here. If I only wanted to sort, maybe I wanted to see information based on close date, right? I can save that shortcut just like that, right? So if I go ahead and add a shortcut now, that's going to save that sort for me. Maybe that's how I always want to see the transactions list, which is going to be one of the examples we'll go over in a moment. But just wanted to mention that it doesn't have to be a search and a sort. It can simply be a sort by itself. So actually that's a good segue into the practical examples, right? I just sorted this based on close date because maybe this is how I want to see my transactions list all the time, right? I could still do further searches if I want to, but when I come to my transactions list, maybe I always want to see it sorted by close date, or maybe I always want to see it sorted by transaction name, right? Right now it does a smarter sort, which is based on location and some other things. But if I really only wanted to see it sorted by transaction name or say close date or any sort that that was meaningful to me, I could do that, then go ahead and add that as a shortcut. And maybe I call this my main transactions list, right? And instead of going to the transactions list all the time, once the shortcuts are on the dashboard, or maybe once I get here, I always click my main transactions list search. So let me go ahead and remove that one because I've got a limit of 5 here. And I'm going to save that as a main transaction search. So now I've got my main transactions list. So now whenever I come into Pipeline, I come here and I click my main transactions list, and it automatically sorts for me based on however I've saved that, which currently is by transaction name. Okay. So I can use the custom search or sort, or the custom shortcuts, I'll call them generically, to sort of use them as my default transactions list if I want to. That's the first practical use of it. Okay. Next thing I want to show you, and what I'm doing again is just giving some examples of how you can use it. Your office may have different workflows, and some may be useful, some may not be, but it should give you an idea of the different types of things that you can do, and then you can adapt it to your workflow to meet your needs for reports that you would run regularly, or just lists that you would run regularly. Okay. So like I mentioned, I could use it as my default transactions list here. Another popular one could be, let's say I wanted to see all of those transactions where the status has changed today. Let me refresh that, make sure I don't have any searches on, and I wanted to see where the status has changed on today, right? And then I save that as a shortcut if I need to. All right, so next example is maybe I wanted to see transactions that went pending or had an accepted date on a particular period. Maybe I wanted to see all those that got accepted last month. So let me go ahead and clear out that date range and say accepted on, and maybe last month. Okay, and I can search for those. It could be a report that I'd like to save. Another great example could be that just looking at listings that are taking too long to actually go pending, right? In that case, let me go ahead and refresh that page. I could look for those that have a status of listed and where the status has changed on whatever period, right? So maybe I want to see, maybe I run this report at the end of the month and I want to see all those that were changed to listed last month and are still listed, right? So that would be, I've gone this whole month and the month before, if there's in that month before, that's over 30 days for me, right? So that could be a report that I want to run regularly and save as a shortcut. Another great custom shortcut could be looking at this month's listing inventory. Let me refresh that page. So I wanted to see wherever I had the listing side, and say my listed on is maybe this month. So there we go. So those transactions where I got the listing side that were listed this month, right? That could be a practical search for me. And again, save that as the shortcut. All of the search options that you see here are hugely beneficial, but I've also got the ability to use my search options up here, which make it even more powerful. So if I run a search operator, and if you're not familiar with these basically allow you to search within certain fields for the most part, right? So it gives you a much more granular search. And you can do a lot more in here. For example, if I wanted to search for transactions by the transaction name, I could do that here. If I wanted to search by buyer name, if I wanted to search for particular agents' transactions, maybe outside agents, etc., I could do lead sources, etc. So right now, for this example, let's say I wanted to find all of the pending transactions for a specific agent, which is something that could be really beneficial for, say, TCs who work only with specific agents, and several other instances as well. So let's say I were to search for all the transactions that had Fleming as the agent and whose status was pending, right? So that gives me my, and then I'll just add this as a shortcut. Maybe these are Fleming pending, right? I save that, except I'm at my limit. If I could save that, then I've got that report that I can run regularly. Right? And of course I can do that based on any status or any of these other options here. Doing that operator search first and then being able to combine it with these other options is very powerful. Notice when you search in the search operator section, it's always going to bring it down to here. So this field is equivalent to this one, right? Your global search field is equivalent to this one. So when you search here, you can use these search operators to refine your search. It'll bring it down here, and again, you can combine it with these other options. So it gives you a lot of flexibility as far as creating ad hoc reports and seeing exactly what you need to see. Like I mentioned, you can do active transactions based on a sort. Let me clear this out. Start over, right? By default, when you come to the transactions page, it is already only showing active transactions, right? So if you do add a sort by close date or sort by transaction name, whichever you need to do, it'll go ahead and save that custom shortcut based on that. I'm gonna go ahead and clear this out again. Some offices will have, well, all offices will have custom statuses, but some will have ones that reflect the home warranty, right? And you might want to look at all transactions that closed with a home warranty and say last year, right? So I'll say closed last year. And that may be a search that I need to run. Oops, don't have any of that, but that might not be a regular report you need to do. So you may not actually save it as a shortcut since it does sound like it's annual, but and you don't want to use up one of those slots. But again, helpful to know that you can do that type of search. And that's with any status or any other option you've got here, but status is particularly one that gets very customized. Whatever custom status that you have and you need to track something based on a date range, you can go ahead and do that, not just closed with home warranty. Another one is, I'm gonna go ahead and clear that out. I mentioned that you've got the ability to, among other things, search by lead source. Let's say I were to search for or needed to run a lead source report that had transactions closed within a certain period, so I can gauge how my marketing efforts are going. So maybe I search for all lead sources that had Google, maybe AdWords, or whatever your campaign was, and then closed, say, last year, right? And I can save that. Again, this particular example is an annual report, so that may not be something that I save to my with my shortcuts, but useful to know that you can run those types of searches, especially given these date ranges, et cetera, these predefined date ranges. And just to reiterate once more, keep in mind that when you are saving these searches, they can be searches and sorts. So for example, if I were to run that, let me refresh this again. Let's say I were to run a closed, transactions closed next month, right? This doesn't have many in there. Let's do this transactions closing this year. Let's get some more data in here so you can see the example, right? Be sure to sort it first if you want these to be ordered in a particular way. So if I wanted to also sort it by close date, that's a more meaningful report to me. And then save your shortcut. That way you've got a clean list, it's in the order that you want, etc. Last few practical examples, you could want to run a pending report based on commissions for those of you that have the commissions module. Let me refresh this page here. So maybe I wanted to see all transactions that were pending with commissions entered. I could do that, or maybe pending without commissions entered, right? So different options there. I could want to see all the transactions that were added this week or this month. So clear this out again and say added on maybe this month, right? I can run that. And then the last one, that last good one is, let me clear this out. Maybe I wanted to see all the transactions that were expiring this week, right? And then address those first, okay? So those are some practical examples, again, with the main goal being to get them over to your My Shortcuts list, especially if they're ones that you run regularly, so that you can access them easily without having to re-execute these searches. And again, they'll be super beneficial once they're on the dashboard so that you can access them as soon as you log in. And that's all that we've got for today.